Right, so I've got to ask myself a question. What does filming every day actually do, and what is the purpose of it? The quicker I can address this, the more I can adapt what I'm actually doing into something more productive and with an intention, an end goal, and a direction of travel. I think the issues I face in this is because I'm just starting out on this thing. It's difficult to believe in the effort necessary to do it, and to believe that there is an end goal and a destination, and that if I continue on the path, there is any promise of personal gain. And although I know there is, there's a part of me that also is grappling with what that personal gain might mean. And I think that's the unknown, and that's the thing that would stop me from doing this thing. I think very much I'm afraid of that unknown. And yet, in truth, considering the path of my life, the thing I should be most afraid of is staying the same. It's going to be in these moments where I really find out who I am and attempt to heal from this trauma of the initial parts of my life. I'm beginning to understand the importance of forgiveness, which begins first with ourselves. Today I woke up to the realization that my trauma came from when my body didn't have the resources necessary to keep my mind safe from the threat of present moment experience. This dissociation, this break, this snap of mind-body experience. As a child, I was remarkably coordinated. I didn't think, not in words. Feelings popped into me, into my mind, propagated my experience, and allowed me to live genuinely and authentically. But after this psychological break, after being repeatedly chased through the hallways and that parent, well, both parents, satiating some type of sexual gratification from my terror and my need for comforting being denied, I could no longer function productively. And I have lost, I would say, 20 years of my life. And what I've done is continued that abuse by when that area of my body, which in that moment didn't have the resources necessary to face up to the threat, after being pushed to the ground, pinned to the floor and battered after a repeated cycle of being chased and made to feel afraid, and watching my family fall apart psychologically, I have continued in this 20-year loss to deny that part of me which didn't have the strength to deal with that present moment experience. And in doing so, what I've fallen into the trap of doing is continuing that cycle of abuse. Abuse occurs, as far as I can tell from my experiences, it occurs from a denial of need. We constrict and suffocate, not because necessarily we are bad people or that human beings are bad, but because it is our only response available to us in that present moment experience. I feel like I have not been conditioned to heal that area of trauma, and I fall back into habit, which is to escape that calling, that inner voice, which is not verbal, it is not words, it is the world of feeling. And that feeling is calling out for something that was missing and that I must find. And that, I think, is where purpose comes from. You know, the most believable thing about a superhero is their origin story, and everything else about their life takes on a fantastical or a fantasy element. It becomes less and less believable because they have super strength or super speed or something abstracted from reality. But the real truth I find in superheroes is the origin story, is the tragic moment in their past which defines their future. And so, in this moment and these preceding moments, and in, moments previously felt, there is an opportunity to feed that missing thing and to nourish it and to heal. And in doing so, gain, once again, some type of a power from past experiences. There's that cliched quote of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which is absolute shit. But I think the truth is, what you can recover from makes you stronger. There are many things that don't kill us, but steal from us. But there is very little that we recover from that doesn't provide lessons that we wouldn't have had otherwise, and experiences that we've learned from and developed ourselves within. And so I feel stupid putting myself under pressure to film myself every day, to take some type of personal accountability. But I think that feeling of stupidity is once again restricting myself from personal development and gaining access to the available resources of recovery and continuing the cycle of abuse that I was raised within. My parents picked up those disgusting behaviours from their parents, and their parents likely picked them up from their parents. And so, if you see it as a wheel turning, it's very difficult to blame anything or anyone in particular. The problem with trauma and abuse is, rather than blame others, we tend to blame ourselves. We blame our experience and our inability to act effectively, despite being exposed to things which we are unprepared for. I couldn't just get up now and run a marathon in a decent time, but I could train for it. I couldn't drive a rally car effectively and compete without training. And yet I think there is a part of myself which would seek to blame itself for not being effectively trained to deal with scenarios it wasn't even aware it would exist. And I think that's the part of myself I have to forgive. That part of myself which wants to take its most vulnerable elements and use them to abuse itself. Because you've got to be vulnerable to learn. And you've got to be vulnerable to grow. And so if you destroy your own vulnerability, then you destroy your ability for growth.